So this is our little lesson on food labels, and I'd like you to watch this video and then complete the assignment that follows about food labels. And what you'll be asked to do is basically look at a food label, any kind of food label from something you choose in your kitchen, and kind of analyze it, kind of like what I'm going to do now. And I'm going to explain what you should look at basically when you're looking at a food label, and just a couple of things to pay attention to when you're looking at the marketing of certain foods. So if we look at this food label, a lot of times what people make the mistake of doing is that they'll initially just look at the calories. So they'll look at their calories and then base their decision on that. And that's not always the case, because what you really need to look at is the serving size. Now, if we look at the serving size, what happens is that the amount of calories is only for the serving size. But if you buy a bag of chips, for example, the bag of chips itself maybe contains 2 or 3 or 4 servings, which means that these calories then multiply themselves. So, for example, this particular food label it says serving size is 1 cup. And then it says servings per container 2. So that means there's 2 servings per container, whatever this is, which means that you then have to multiply your calories by 2. And this is kind of the misleading thing. And what you really have to pay attention to is serving size. So if we go here, yes, calories do count. But like it says here, you should definitely pay attention to the serving size. Next, you're going to look at probably total fat. Okay, and the amount of fat that's found in something is something we need to look at. The type of fat is also really important. So saturated and trans fats and cholesterol, those are the things you should probably avoid. Now, percent daily value and Greek labels are a little bit different. They're quite similar, I mean, besides the fact that they're in Greek. But you should also look at your daily percent value, which means is how, like, in this package, you're basically eating 18% of the amount of fat you should be eating a day. So you need to be careful with that. That's the kind of stuff. And trans fats, you've probably heard recently of this whole thing with trans fats. Trans fats are basically a type of fat that's been molecularly altered, which has a huge effect on your health. So a lot of restaurants, especially in the United States, they've not allowed to use trans fats. And we're going to talk a little bit about marketing of trans fats. So even if they tell you, if you read a label on something that says, zero trans fats or no trans fats, you have to be careful, because some products are allowed to say that as long as they have 0.5 grams or less of trans fats. So it's not totally true. So you need to be careful with your cholesterol and your sodium. Then we look at carbohydrates. Carbohydrates been getting a lot of heat, just like fat. And you'll look at one of the infographics I have in Moodle where they compare carbohydrates and fats. Carbohydrates are not as good as everybody thinks they are, especially the type of carbohydrate. So that you need to be careful with that too. And in carbohydrates, we have this whole thing with sugar. And again, there's another infographic about sugar. Need to be careful. Sugar is dangerous. Sugar is addictive. And this is one of the things that we need all, even children, need to reduce. And we'll talk about that in the infographic later. So pay attention to the carbohydrates. Going back to the whole sugar thing, it's written here. Be careful with the amount of added sugar in something. It's one thing when it's naturally present in the food, but it's another thing when it's added. And one way you can tell that, and unfortunately I don't have it here in front of me, but one way you can tell that is ingredients. So when you're looking at the ingredients, you really need to look at if there's any indication of sugar in there, or something called sucrose or fructose. They're all written here. Let me just make it bigger here. So it says limit foods with added sugars like sucrose, glucose, fructose, corn syrup, or maple syrup. That's another big one, which add calories but no nutrients. So this is where you need to pay attention to that kind of stuff. And usually in the ingredients, if sugar is one of the first ingredients listed, that means there's a lot of it. So if you look at the list of ingredients, the ones that are at the top of a list, that's the most, what it contains the most of. So you need to be careful with that too. So this is just really quickly looking at a food label. So again, what I'd like you to do is find any food label in your house. Now, you want to present it to me in writing. So you take a picture of the food label and just analyze, just talk about the food label, kind of like how I talked about it here. So mention calories, mention servings, what you should be careful about. Maybe even add the ingredients so we can look at the ingredients, and you can discuss it in writing form, maybe a paragraph or two. So another thing I want to look at right now is how foods are advertised. And this is more of a problem in the United States or in North America where, like I was saying, this is a problem in North America and the United States where really food marketing is such a big deal, and it makes such a difference in how people choose their foods and what kind of foods they eat. It's not so big of a problem here in Greece, but still I just want to talk about it so you're aware of kind of this stuff. And if you watch the Food Inc. Documentary in its entirety, the one that I think I put that on Moodle, I can't remember, or on Facebook. If you watch it, they talk a little bit about marketing and how really kind of dangerous it is because it really misleads you. Okay, so here, when I talked about sucrose or sugar before, this is where we need to be careful because sometimes we find sugar in places where we wouldn't expect or we don't count it. So things like ketchup or other kinds of condiments like mustard and mayonnaise and all that, they contain a lot of sugar. And this is where you need to be careful because look at the ingredients here. So tomato concentrate, vinegar, salt, natural flavoring, onion powder, sucralose. Okay, that's a type of sugar. So these are the kind of things you need to be careful about. And you guys are living in a time where this is kind of cool because you can look this stuff up. You can look it up. So if you're really interested in it and you're like, sucralose, that sounds like sucrose, should I look it up, find out what it is? So you're lucky in that sense. So you need to be careful with things or with claims that say that something has reduced sugar because it could also be hidden. Here, low carb or zero trans fats, this you need to be careful. So here, what they're trying to tell you is, you see this part here where it says hydrogenated. Okay, when oil is being hydrogenated, they add hydrogen to it, and that's a type of trans fat. So even though they tell you zero trans fats, but when you add hydrogenated oil, that's another type of trans fat. So they're trying to kind of fool you into believing that, oh, this doesn't have any trans fat. Or like the article says here, it shows, like it says here, based on FDA regulations, so Food and Drug Administration in the United States, if the product has less than 0.5 grams of any fat serving, they're allowed to list it as zero. So misleading, so it does have trans fat, but because it's less than 0.5 grams, they can actually advertise it as being zero fat, which is kind of scary that they could do that. Another thing that they often do is really add like all these fancy scientific words on labels, and they do that a lot with like makeup and women's creams and so on. They'll say it's full of enzymes or it's full of amino acids or in this case antioxidants. Antioxidants, yes, are found in a lot of fruits and they are good for you. However, for example, cherries have antioxidants. But just because 7-Up added cherry flavor and a whole lot of sugar to their drink doesn't make it good for you. But they're allowed to put the label antioxidant because they contain cherries and cherries are an antioxidant. So again, another thing you need to be careful about in terms of labeling. More whole grain, that's misinterpreting. Whole grain wheat and whole grain corn is totally different. Let me circle it here. Okay, so you really need to be careful about your the labeling on your foods. Again, not a huge problem in Greece, but nonetheless something to look at. Weight control, yeah, you add weight control, so people are thinking, oh, if I eat this stuff, I'm going to lose weight. No, that's not the case. So yeah, oatmeal is considered something good to eat, but however, when you're adding in different types of sweeteners in there, not so healthy. Okay, again, you need to not take everything, for face value. Look at the package, but go into your ingredients, go into your food labels so you can see what's really going on. Look up stuff. Smart bakes. I mean, these are just little tricks that they use, right? So smart bakes that tell you, well, this is smart. It's baked with real cinnamon. Look at this, with real cinnamon. What other kind of cinnamon would you put in it? It tells you it has fiber, it has whole grain, it's only 150 calories, although we don't know what the serving is, 150 calories, and it says one serving size or one cake. So if this little cake is small and people are easily, so you see it here, it says serving size is one cake. So one little cake is 150 calories. Partially hydrogenated, there's our trans fat. Okay, so marketing is an evil thing sometimes. So this is like some sort of juice, and they call it roaring waters, and it says no artificial colors or flavors, and it has zero juice. But how is it possible that it has no artificial colors or flavors, no juice, but somehow it has the taste of strawberry and kiwi? So more things you need to be careful about. Who knew nutrition-rich cookies? It talks about fiber and so on, but then when you look at their ingredients, here corn syrup is mentioned, and I hope you saw that Food Inc. Documentary. Corn syrup is deadly, and it's in the United States, and it's found in a whole lot of products. Sorry, just 2 seconds here. What else do we have? Yeah, right bites. See, all these things that you need to be careful about. Okay, these are all advertising tricks to get you to eat their products. So again, watch this video, go find yourself a food label or some sort of packaging and take a picture of it, post it on Facebook, and then respond with let's say, I would say about 200 words. Just respond to, what you noticed about the food label, what you noticed about the ingredients. Is it really a good product? Is it not? And then respond to one of your classmates' food labels. All right, so talk soon.